I am very proud tonight because the guest that I have tonight is a guest that I've respected for many years. Tim Black's Wolfpack, everyone in attendance, all of you, I humbly and with very much enthusiasm bring to you none other than Jane Elliott. Give it up for Jane Elliott, everybody. Wow.
There he is. Oh, good Lord. What a lovely introduction.
Thank you so
now
much.
Let's get down to truth, shall we?
I'd like to just kind of let everyone, because I know there's probably some people, we got some millennials who tune into this show. They may not have been exposed to you. So could you give them a little once over about yourself and an introduction?
Well, I was born and raised 17 miles or 21 miles from where I'm sitting right now. I haven't gotten very far in my life, and I grew older in Riceville, Iowa. I grew up after I left there and went to college and met people who were black, who were smarter than I was, had more money than I had better experiences than I had, and totally destroyed all the negative crap that I had heard until the age of 18. I found out that they lied to me in school about that, and then I wondered what else did they lie about. And I found out that they lied about a whole lot of other things. When I started teaching third grade, I taught third grade in Riceville, Iowa for several years, and I was teaching third grade the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. He had been one of our heroes of the month in February, and I can't talk about this without getting sick to my stomach, because Martin Luther King, for me, represented hope. And hope, for me, is an acronym for holding on to positive energy. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. did. And he offered hope to all of us. It wasn't just about black people. It wasn't about white people. It was about freeing all of us from the shackles of racism and the lie of white superiority. And he was doing something that was going to make a difference, a positive difference for all of us. And so because he was about to join hands and join forces with Malcolm X and change the economic system in this country, he had to die, and so did Malcolm X. If you think for a minute that Martin Luther King Jr. was killed by one man, you're mistaken. He was killed by this society that didn't want to give that group of people that kind of power, and so we killed him very effectively. Now, somebody has said that nothing can stop a man with a dream or an idea whose time has come. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream. They could kill his body, but they couldn't kill that dream. And it still lives on in those of us who were here at that time and were angry at that killing. And the idea of one race, the human race, instead of 4 or 5 different races, there's only one race. That is an idea whose time has come. I went into my classroom the next morning after that man was killed, and I knew I was going to have to discuss the killing of Martin Luther King Jr. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I couldn't explain this killing to my students. And I found out shortly after we started to talk about this killing that those kids didn't see a whole lot wrong with that, because their folks had indicated very, very vigorously that it was about time. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So since our lesson plan that day was to learn the Sioux Indian prayer, because we were studying Indians at that time, and isn't it interesting that right now we're having to defend the Indians' reservation from the Canadian pipeline? We've come full circle. We're still doing it, people. We haven't stopped. We're never going to stop. It's all about greed. We're going to learn the Sioux Indian prayer that says, "Oh, Great Spirit, keep me from ever judging a man until I walk the mile in his moccasins." I decided the night before that I was going to arrange for my students to walk a mile in the shoes of a child of color in my classroom for a day. I decided that I was going to do what Hitler did. I was going to pick out a group of people on the basis of the color of their eyes, which is caused by the same chemical that the color of your skin is, melanin. And I was going to treat part of those students, the ones who had too much melanin or too little melanin in their eyes, the way we treat people of color other than the white color group in this country on a daily basis. I didn't know how this would work. If I had known how it would work, I wouldn't have done it. If I had known that I was going to watch my students become what I had taught them to be, and had known that it would only take 15 minutes for them to show me what I looked like as a white woman to people of color in that exercise, I probably wouldn't have done that exercise. I didn't want to learn what I learned that day, but I learned. I had no choice. I separated my group according to the color of their eyes. After we tried to discuss this racism, there was no learning taking place. I finally said, okay, would you kids have any idea how it would feel to be something other than white in this country? No. Would you like no? Yeah, it was all like we've already gotten out of spelling and handwriting. Keep this broad talking on. We won't have to learn anything all day. Kids do it in school all the time.
Yeah.
And they did it. And I said, okay, today we're going to treat people positively or negatively on the basis of the color of their eyes. And since I'm blue-eyed, and blue-eyed people outnumber the brown-eyed people in this room, today, brown-eyed people are going to be on the top in this exercise. Immediately, one of the students said, what do you mean? I said, I mean blue-eyed people aren't as smart as brown-eyed people. They're as clean as brown-eyed people. They aren't as civilized as brown-eyed people. You give blue-eyed people something nice, and what do? Immediately, a brown-eyed person said, they tear it up. And immediately, little Debbie, sitting in the front row, looked up at me and said, how come you're the teacher here if you got them blue eyes? And there was nothing I could say because she got me. And she knew she'd gotten me, and she knew there was nothing I could do to stop her. But immediately, another student, a blue-eyed student, spoke up and said, if she didn't have them blue eyes, she'd be either the principal or the superintendent. They're both brown-eyed. That quickly, I knew that these kids know how to act like racists. And somebody has taught them. And I'm one of the ones that taught them, because I teach the standard elementary curriculum, which is not education, it is indoctrination. I was told when I took social studies education courses, you teach children in a way that will make them good citizens of the United States. In other words, if the legend sells, teach the legend. We've taught a lie, and it's time to stop teaching that lie. I was absolutely amazed at what happened with those kids on that day. I'll never forget it. And I'll never forget what I'd seen this happen. If I'd been a black teacher, I'd have known enough to expect it. Then was about 55, and she said, I don't know how you have time for all that extra stuff. It's all I can do to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. Well, she hadn't taught reading, writing, and arithmetic yet. She might as well have done the other extra stuff. And the other one said, over 60 years old, had been molding young minds for over 30 years. And she said on the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, I don't know why you're doing that. I thought it was about time somebody shot that son of a bitch. And not one teacher gasped, and not one teacher frowned, and not one teacher said, judge not that you be not judged. And not one of those good Christian women said, insomuch as ye have done it unto one of these my brethren, so have ye done it unto me. And not one of them said, God is love. And so on, and not one word. Every one of those teachers either smiled or laughed or nodded. And because she had expressed their feelings perfectly, and as the most senior member of the group, she had the most right to do so. I learned more in that instant than I had ever learned in a college psychology course. It was absolutely terrifying. I went back to my room determined that no student of mine or anybody who ever had to associate with me was going to leave my presence with those attitudes unchallenged. I may not be able to change your attitude, but I can challenge your attitude, and you have to prove to me that white people are superior, and you can't do it because it isn't true. I learned a lot that day. I learned more than I wanted to know. That's the background of what I do and why I still do it.
Wow. That's amazing, Jane. That's amazing. Wow. I'm kind of speechless. Just hearing actually how that went down, and I'm just wondering from that. You decided, you're gonna start going across the country. You're gonna put together curricula, and you're gonna start teaching people a program that to open eyes. Is that kind of how it evolved?
No, you don't understand. Nobody wants this program. Nobody wants me to change the curriculum, because my curriculum would say there's only one race on the face of the earth, and we're all members of it. It's the human race. All these others are color groups. There are 2,500 different skin colors on the face of the earth. You show me somebody who can come up with 2,500 different names for races. Race is a lie. There's only one race on the face of the earth. And when we're saying I get to do this because of the color of my skin or because of my race, it isn't because of their race. It's because of our ignorance, our conditioning to think that there's more than one race. There's not. There's only one race. There's no black race, there's no white race, there's no yellow race, there's no red race, there's no brown race. There is only the human race, and human beings come in different sizes and shapes and colors and genders and sexual orientations. And that's the way it is. Get over it, folks.
Gosh,
this is an idea whose time has come. This is an idea whose time has come. It is time to wipe out the idea of 4 or 5 different races. There's only one, and that's the human race. All of you people listening to me, whether you like it or not, are my relatives. Now, you may not want me to be your relative, but that's the way it is. You're stuck with me. And I will not allow my relatives to be abused by somebody else because of their ignorance about skin color. I won't have it. I'm a member of the family of man, and so are all of you.
Wow.
I shouldn't be. You should have called somebody else. I'm sorry.
No.
I can't do this.
I love it. I love it.
Sweetly.
No, I love it. I love it. I want to hit the applause button, but I don't want to step on your feet because you're making such great statements and such prolific statements that I think everyone needs to hear. Last thing what I want to do is interrupt, but I will say this. I applaud you. I applaud your stance and I applaud what you're saying, and it's something that needs to be said, especially at this time. And my first question to you.
Listen to me. Do not applaud me for what I'm saying. I'm a white woman. And I know 1/1000th of what every black woman in the United States of America knows.
Wow.
And we won't listen to them because of our ignorance about skin color. It isn't because of the color of their skin. It's because of our ignorance about skin color. It isn't because of white privilege. It's because of white ignorance. And people will listen to me because I'm white. White folks will listen to me because I'm white and then call me all those names.
Right.
And then threaten to shoot me and all that stuff. And I've been threatened with death so often that it's kind of a joke anymore. And when I go on a college campus and give a speech, there's always those 3 little fraternity boys in about the 3rd row, and they're talking while I am. And I finally stop and I say, now listen, fellas, I know what you're talking about. You guys want me dead. But let me warn you about something. If you kill me on this campus because of what I'm trying to do to decrease the level of racism in this country, you might make a martyr out of me, and then you might have to spend the rest of your lives celebrating Jane Elliott Day once a year. Now, do you want to do that? And immediately they all do that first fingers to making into a cross thing in front of me. I say, that's right. Keep me alive on your campus, because if you don't, you're going to get blamed for forcing people to notice the fact that I live once a day, every year. And then they quiet down and they listen because they don't want to be blamed for that.
No, they don't. No, they don't. That's the last thing
See,
they
it
want.
didn't work with Martin Luther King Jr. It didn't work with Martin Luther King Jr. It didn't work with Malcolm X.
Why not?
And it won't work if they try to kill Barack Obama. And I'm surprised that they haven't.
Do you think racism has gotten worse under Barack Obama?
Yeah, but it's not because of Barack Obama. It's because of, right now, one of the major fears that is expressed by white people when I finish giving a speech at any location is, this is what they say. Well, if they get power, aren't they going to want to treat us the way we've treated them? And there's a book called The Birth Dearth, written by a man named Ben Wattenberg. And the first paragraph of the first page says, white people, if the name of the book is The Birth Dearth, and the idea is there are too few white babies being born in this country today. Now, these are his words, not mine. He says, if we do not change this situation and do it quickly, white people will be outnumbered in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. And I'm angry, because he says there are 3 ways we can solve this problem. Number 1, and this is his book. I didn't write this book, I'm quoting it. Number 1, we can pay women to have babies as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants allowed into this country every year. Once again, he says, unfortunately, the majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. He says the third thing we could do is remember that 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Now, those of you who are listening to this and think the Right to Life movement is about morality and about those poor little fetuses need to realize that it is about neither one. It is about increasing the number of live white births in this country. He doesn't say what you want to do about that other 40% of those fetuses that are not white. If you don't understand Donald Trump's talking about immigration and all those people south of the border, what he's talking about is keeping brown people out of this country because, as he says, they reproduce too fast. Now, I'm not making this up. Try to get a copy of The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg. You'll have a difficult time getting it. I've been advising people to do that, and somebody tried to get a copy, and it was going to cost them $800. Another one tried to get a copy. It was going to cost her $200. Why have they taken that book off the shelves? Why is it difficult to get that book? Is it because they don't want us to know what the plan is? Ben Wattenberg was an advisor to Presidents of the United States. He was a member of the American Enterprise Institute. And that will tell some of you who know about the American Enterprise Institute about what Ben Wattenberg was all about. Now, look at the book and then tell me, then send me a letter. Then send me your nasty letter and tell me you think I was lying. You need to read the book.
Need to read the book. The Birth Dearth, guys. The Birth Dearth.
The Birth Dearth, Birthdearth, which means a scarcity of birth, but not of all births, only of white births. If you think the Right to Life movement is about anything but the Right to White Life movement, you better take another look. I am absolutely in favor of Black Lives Matter.
Why is that?
Black Lives Matter because of what Frederick Douglass said. Frederick Douglass said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. And he also said, where justice is denied, as in this country, where poverty is enforced, as in this country, where ignorance prevails, did you watch Donald Trump last night? And where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe. That's why Black Lives Matter to me.
Wow.
Because if they're doing it to black people today, they'll do it to people like me tomorrow because I'm old. And I know that. I know that I'm costing this country money. I'm costing you taxpayers money. And I'm still paying into income, into Social Security, and I still pay income tax.
Wow, wow. And what you're saying is that is this a government mandate? Like, is this a government plan to tap down on the number of black folks in America, brown people, black people in America? Would you say that?
You want to talk about the prison industrial complex?
Yes.
You want to talk about the number of young black males who are in jail for victimless crimes in many cases, particularly because of the crime bill signed by Mr. Clinton?
Yes.
You want to talk about that? You want to talk about the new Jim Crow written by Michelle Alexander? Everybody get that book and read it and realize that we have a place for the young black males that we can't teach in school. And it's not because they're unteachable. It's because we aren't in the business of educating everyone. We're in the business of indoctrinating everyone and teaching those that we want to use in the wrong way. There are people going around the country today right now saying that we won the Civil War, there is no slavery in this country, and there's no segregation. Look at the prison industrial complex and you'll realize that we have reinstituted slavery in the United States of America. And there are more children attending segregated schools in this country today than there were previous to Brown versus Board of Education. Now, I know that I should be gentle about this and not be aggressive and abrasive because some of you are now thinking, man, she's a real bitch. Yes, I am. But bitch for me is an acronym for being in total control, honey. And when I'm called the B word, I know that somebody thinks I'm in control. We've got to put a stop to this. And white people have the power to put a stop to this. But we have chosen not to. It's time to make different choices. people of color, Black Lives Matter, because black people can put a stop to this. At least they can slow it down, but not by agreeing to go along to get along. It isn't working. Going along to get along hasn't worked yet.
So many.
Show me what anybody will put up, any group will put up with, and that's what will be enforced upon them until it is resisted with words or with arms or with both. I think Frederick Douglass said that too. It's time to put a stop to this, and we could.
You know, a lot of people say, Jane, that we don't have more, for instance, police brutality. We just have now the means to capture it. You being around a while, would you make that claim? Would you say that, or would you disagree?
Absolutely. It would be 100 times, at least 100 times worse if it weren't for the fear of those cell phones. Cell phones have been a real sort of a break on police brutality. But don't blame it all on the police. The police are only doing what they've been taught to do. They've had the same conditioning that all the rest of us have. They've learned about the rightness of whiteness. That's what education is about in this country. Everybody learns it. If a white person in this country has graduated from high school and isn't a racist, he didn't learn the curriculum. He ought to go back and take it over. He didn't learn the curriculum. He ought to go back and take it over. He didn't learn the curriculum. He ought to go back and take it over. I'm sorry, but I know. Oh my! I'm going to send me letters, and if you think I'll read them, think again.
What specifically?
I have had all the abusive letters I need to take. I kind of now just I look at them. If it isn't signed, I don't read it at all.
Wow. I understand the issue about the globe, and I understand about history, of course, but what are some specifics in our curriculum and education that you say teaches people racism? Or how to be racist?
Number one, they forget to tell that if we hadn't had, let me answer that this way. Stephen King, member of the House of Representatives from Iowa, said 3 weeks ago that no colored people, as he put it, or words to that effect, have ever contributed anything important to civilization. White people have done all that. Now, while he was saying that, he was sitting in a room, I'm sure, with electric lights on. You wouldn't have those if it hadn't been for the fact that black men, a number of black men, invented the process for generating and transmitting electricity. If he knew what he was talking about, he wouldn't have looked at the calendar unless he stopped to think, oh my God, we got that from people of color. The shoes he was wearing, he had a right shoe and a left shoe, because a black man named Jan Ernst Matzeliger invented a last, working all by himself, so that we could have two shoes of different shapes, so that we have the right shoe and the left shoe. When he goes downtown and stops at the stoplight, that red, green, yellow light, he is being controlled by an invention that was developed with the help of a black man. Our numeration system came to us not from the Romans, came to us from Arabs. Those are people of color in our estimation. 50% of the foods that he eats and that are in his pantry or in his refrigerator came to us from citizens, from communities of people of color. The man doesn't know what he's talking about, but you see, he's white and he doesn't have to know what he's talking about to be elected to the House of Representatives in the state of Iowa. I rest my case.
You do.
Sorry, I should be nice about it.
No, you shouldn't. No. So Trump is running. He won the nomination with the Republicans, and what do you think about that?
But
I'll just open the door.
I don't call him Trump. I call him Donosaurus T. Rump, because he has the mind of a dinosaur. He's that backward in his thinking. Donosaurus T. Rump, and his mouth looks rather like an anal aperture. And when he opens it, out spews excrement. Now, this is probably not the things these are not the things one should say on a family show. But he's saying things every day. The media is putting that man on saying absolutely unacceptable things about all kinds of people, particularly people of color groups other than the white color group. And we have to expose him for doing that. That we must not allow.
It burns me up to no end, Jane, how many black pastors are praising him and are supporting him or even coming out and stumping for him, and they just don't get it. That's why I made a tweet earlier today, and I said, some people get, I'm torn between thinking some people don't get it or some people get it, but they don't want to get it because they want to bow to the system. What's your take on
these? They've learned the same things that he has. They've learned the same things that he has. And they are proving that they know just as little as he does. And that's unfortunate. We are in such a situation this year. I've never seen an election like this one. And I've seen a lot of them. I was a waitress at the Last Supper. I've seen a lot of this business. But you need to know that we have never had to choose between the best of the worst before. And that's what we have to choose from this year. We have to pick from we have to take the best of the worst. That's a Hobson's choice. I really resent this. And I resent the Republicans for letting this happen. And I used to be one of those.
I hear you. I hear you. So now we got a lot of protests going around the country.
You have another question?
Yeah, I do. We have a lot of protests going around the country. Recently, a football player by the name of Colin Kaepernick, he took a knee and he didn't salute the flag, and this became a major issue, and people started focusing on the fact he didn't salute the flag, but he was protesting police brutality and the treatment of black people in America. Did you hear about this story, and do you have an opinion about it?
Wait. Colin did exactly the right thing. The last lines of the national anthem, where he was supposed to stand, put his hand over his heart and salute the flag, says, "Oh, say there's that star-spangled banner yet wave, or the land of the free." That means me, white me. And the home of the brave. That means people of other colors. He had the courage, and he was brave enough to practice his freedom and to exercise his freedom. We should thank him very much for doing that. And every black athlete and every white athlete should refuse to stand until we have changed our national anthem to one that does not say the land of the free and the home of the brave, or we should change this country so it is the land where we are all free and where it is necessary to be brave. Where you just expect to have a decent life. You don't expect to be shot at by the police. You don't expect to be bullied on the way to school. You don't expect to be drummed out of school because your white teacher can't teach you because she's convinced that black children can't learn. That's not the land of the free. But it is the home of the brave, because if you stay in school as a person of color, as a child of color, you've got to have real guts to stick it out. And the vast majority of them do. And I don't know how. My heroes are black women. Black women who raise fine children in spite of all the obstacles we place in their paths. Those ought to be our heroes, and those ought to be the women that you're talking to tonight, instead of a white woman who doesn't know from a good grade of clay about racism. All I know about is white people.
Wow. So honest. What are your hopes for the immediate future? What, in the long term, what can we do, and what are your hopes within that?
The first thing you can do is get the book, The Myth of Race, the MYTH of Race, by Robert Wald Sussman. Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T, Wald, W-A-L-D, Sussman, S-U-S-S-M-A-N. Read that book and make that required reading at the high school level in every high school in the United States of America. Because it tells you and it proves that there's only one race on the face of the earth. It's the human race. The idea of 4 or 5 different races was made up after the Spanish Inquisition. It was made up deliberately to have some people have power and everybody else just to have to live with it. You need to read that book. It ought to be required reading, because this is an idea whose time has come. We have to get rid of the idea of several different races. We're all members of the same one. And until we look at one another, as I now, after I read that book, I was convinced before I read it, but after I read that book and saw a couple of young black males coming toward me on the street, I thought, there are some members of my race. I'm a member of their race. Oh my God, those are some of my relatives. It gives you an entirely different feeling about the people around you when you realize that we're all in the same boat. And if we don't stop our behaviors, this boat is going to sink. And it will be because we refuse to allow one another to be treated not equally, because you and I are not equal. I'm sure you're taller than I am, you're smarter than I am, you probably speak a whole lot more languages than I do, you know more about, you've forgotten more since breakfast about racism than I'll ever know, and I know that. You and I will never be equal. You'll always be taller and stronger and younger. I realize that. However, the Constitution does not guarantee us equality. It guarantees us equitable treatment under the law. And that's the reason you have to be careful about the people you put in Congress and the person you put in as president. Because we are promised equitable treatment under the law. And those are the people who write the laws. And those are the people who pass the laws. And then there's the Supreme Court. And those Southern gentlemen are not going to allow, including Chuck Grassley from Iowa, who's head of the Judicial Department. I'm telling you, the man is... Anyway, they aren't going to allow Barack Obama to appoint another member to the Supreme Court. Think about that. They have decided that he doesn't have the right that is given him in the Constitution. The president has the right and the job of choosing members for the Supreme Court. They are robbing him of that. And they're not robbing him of that because he is incapable. And they are not robbing him of that because of the color of his skin. They're robbing him of that because of their ignorance where skin color is concerned.
The way you put that, their ignorance concerning skin color. So in your opinion, all of us are affected by race, and this, we've all been polluted by this how can you say, programming in the United States, and I guess we're all victims. It's not purposeful, or is it purposeful? That's what I'm trying to kind of...
It is too purposeful. It was purposeful 500 years ago, and so we have simply perpetuated it out of laziness. And, in the case of white people, out of feeling good. Power is good. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And what we have right now, running for the presidency, is a man who is being absolutely corrupted, has been corrupted by power, and is going to corrupt this country with his desire for power. And this is the scariest election I've ever seen. Yeah, this is not... You see, the information is out there. If you don't look for it and you don't go after it, then your ignorance is self-imposed ignorance. It isn't that you're stupid. You can't fix stupid. But you can fix ignorance. It's called education. I'm an educator. The word educator comes from the root duck deuce, which means lead, the prefix E, which means out, the suffix ate, which means the act of, and the suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. was doing. That's what Barack Obama is trying to do. That's what Chuck Grassley is trying to prevent happening. That's what Donald Trump is trying to prevent happening. I think it was in the play Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar said, that man is dangerous, he thinks too much. And that's exactly what's happening in this country. We'll give every child in school a computer and these little handheld things,
right,
a cell phone, and let you play games in your hand all day long. That way you won't look around and see what's happening around you. We'll keep your attention.
Keep your attention.
Marshall McLuhan said we'd do it. Marshall McLuhan said that's what television would do to us. And now we have these little handheld things that keep kids' attention all day long. And then we have teachers who say, he has a short attention span. The same kid that the teacher says has a short attention span can spend 3 hours with that handheld thing,
right,
and never look up. It isn't short attention span. It's disinterest in what that teacher is saying, because that teacher is not interested in teaching that child. Now, this isn't every single teacher. but it is a huge percentage of them. And it scares the devil out of me.
What did you think about Bernie Sanders and his movement that started? Did you have an opinion on that?
I thought it was a great movement. I thought it was a great movement, but he was asking for pie in the sky, and it wasn't going to happen. I think now that those who are following him have to say they don't dare write in his name because that will take votes away from Hillary Clinton. So we'll end up with Donosaurus T. Rump. We can't afford that. So even though you may have a problem with Hillary Clinton, you'll have a bigger problem if you get stuck with Donosaurus T. Rump.
You believe that? I'm on the fence with that one, Jane. I just know what Hillary's done in the past. And all I hear from Trump is talk.
I know what Hillary's done in the past. I'd rather know what the enemy you know is better than the enemy, your new enemy, the one you don't know. I know what Hillary's done in the past. And I know that we're going to be able to hold her feet to the fire if she tries to do something like that now. She's on thin ice, and she knows it. Her favorability ratings are way, they're in the toilet.
Right.
And so are Trump's.
Right.
This is ridiculous that these two people are the ones we have to choose from. You don't dare allow Donosaurus T. Rump to become President of the United States. We simply can't allow that. Those of us who are over 50, and believe me, I'm one of those, have seen enough stuff that we know that we cannot have that man making decisions as the President of the United States. Can you imagine who he would put on the Supreme Court? Think about that. Now, there's a scary thought. The things that he said about the generals and the military this week, oh my God. Who have protected us in this country for the last 300 years? You know, and I know. I remember the Second World War. I remember the day the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I remember when the people came home who had liberated the camps in Europe where the Jews were imprisoned. I remember how those men looked and what they said and how sick they were at what they had witnessed. Donosaurus T. Rump doesn't remember that. And if he does, he is in denial. But there are people walking around in this country today there are still a few of them, who have numbers tattooed on their arms. Tattooed there by the Nazis when they were in prison camps. You think that can't happen here? I remember when we had, not too many years ago, a senator from the South who wanted to put gays and lesbians in camps and tattoo numbers on them so that people could identify them and they wouldn't come out and infect the rest of us with some noxious disease. That happened in the last 50 years, people. We're not kidding around here. You better wake up. These are serious times.
But what about Jill Stein and the Green Party, Jane? What about the Green Party? What about Jill Stein? I'm listening.
What about the Green Party?
And Jill Stein.
What about the man who's the independent person who didn't know where that town was? Well,
Gary Johnson.
What he's talking about? Never heard of it.
Yes, Gary Johnson.
Oh my God. But listen, no, you can't do that. You can't do it. And if you vote for one of those two people, lovely as they may be, you might as well vote for Trump, because that will take a vote away from Hillary. And make no mistake, it won't be Hillary. It will be Hillary. But that's better than Donosaurus T. Rump. Isn't that a terrible decision to have to make? It is.
It's a horrible decision, Jane. It's hurting me to even think about it. And it really does. It really does, because I can't stomach either one of them, Jane. That's just the honest truth. Hillary called when I was coming up. I was a teenager in the time when she was calling us super predators, and when Bill passed that crime bill, and when he was fighting and calling black women, welfare queens. That's when I came of age.
Yeah. Super predators who needed to be brought to heel.
Right.
Those are words you use about animals.
Right.
You do not use those words referring to human beings if you have a slick of sense. And when a member of the Black Lives Matter group, a young black woman, stood up on the stage with a placard that said what she had said, Hillary got her off, demanded that she get off the stage, and said, well, maybe that was a poor choice of words. It wasn't a poor choice of words. It was a poor choice of attitude and a poor choice of thought. And she was only expressing what she was thinking. That's bothersome for me. That creates a real problem for me.
Yeah, for me too. For me too. My audience as well. And it's a hard pill to swallow. Just it is. It's a hard pill to swallow.
And this is what you have to vote for. This is what you have to vote for. That's the hard pill to swallow. Yeah. That you have to vote for this person because you don't dare vote for the other one. And there is no way that he could be and even close to President of the United States. I'm sorry. I'm an independent. I'm neither Republican nor Democrat because neither party has much to offer anyone. But I do have the right to vote, and I will not vote for a man who says the kinds of things about Mexicans and women and people with disabilities and mentally retarded. And I won't vote for somebody who says those things. I think Hillary can learn. I'm not sure that Dinosaurus T. Rump can. The problem for him is he spends most of his time in his child ego state. And it's difficult it'll be interesting to watch the debate because he's going to be forced to try to be in the adult ego state. And I don't think he knows how to do that. I've watched him try to read on the monitors. And it's really amazing when he reads the words S-A-Y-S and says it says. It's safe here. I almost fell off my chair when he did that. Oh, I know what kind of reaction you're going to get to what I'm saying here tonight, and I'm not going to tell the rest of you my telephone number. And if you want to send ugly things to my website, go ahead. My daughter will read them and put them in the vertical file.
No, it won't be that bad. It won't be that bad. I'm an independent as well, Jane. So no, you're not in a Republican house or really what or a Democrat house. This is independence. Most of my audience are independent thinkers. But I need to know what you think. You started off talking about the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Sioux and the reservation issue. What's going on there?
Every one of us should be there this weekend. Every single one of us should be there this weekend. We should be there in vast numbers. Too many numbers for them to hire some fool woman with her dog to come in and sick her dog on the people who own that land. And if you've read that article, it will make you absolutely furious. Mm-hmm. We need to support the people who own the land that we're sitting on. We need to support their right not to have their land and their water destroyed by a pipeline. And my son digs in pipelines. That's how he makes his living. So I hope he isn't listening to this. That's a pipeline that should not be allowed. That pipeline should not, in my estimation, that pipeline is a huge mistake. But so is the fracking that Mrs. Clinton has been so supportive of.
There you go again. Right there. The TPP, the fracking.
There you are.
Horrible trade deals, the single jobs, all of that.
Hey, we could settle that if we just do what Dinosaurus T. Rump said and take the oil away from the Iraqis. That's how he's going to solve that problem. Just take their oil. Now, if we just took their oil, we wouldn't have to be fracking. Does that make sense to you?
No, he's going to kill a lot of innocent people trying to do that.
Well, we're going to kill a lot of innocent people with fracking eventually.
True.
It isn't. It's more than the water in one city in Michigan that's going to be damaged by this nonsense. And now some civil engineer, and I have two civil engineer brothers, are going to read me the Riot Act to let me know that I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, I'm older than they are, so they'll probably live longer to find out whether it happens. But it's already happening in Oklahoma. They're having earthquakes in Oklahoma. And they're saying it's because of the fracking. How far are we willing to go to destroying, how far are we going to let our greed take us until we finally destroy this planet?
Wow. And that's the reason why people are considering Jill Stein. That's why I'm a supporter of her, because I'm independent and I believe in saving the planet. I believe in going green. I'm against fracking. She's like, they support all of the issues that I support. And I hear you, sister. I do hear you.
Well, I can't support fracking.
Right.
But there's no way I can support the other choice.
Dinosaurs.
No. Anyway, do you have another question about racism? I'm sorry. I thought I was going to be on for 20 minutes. I'm sorry.
No. You're fantastic. I would just like, you answered every question I could think of, and you just ran through it. You've been fantastic. Please do you have any books? Where can people find out more information? What should they do to find out more about you, Jane?
Well, you don't need to know about me. There is a book that I've written, and it's called A Collar in My Pocket, and I just got it published. And it's not really what you call a book. It's more a diary of the things I've learned and how I've learned them in the last 48 years of doing this exercise, for the love of heaven. In 2 years, it will be 50 years, half a century since we killed Martin Luther King Jr. And where are we? We're going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the assassination of a man who could have made us fully human. But we couldn't risk that. So he's dead. So this book is what I've learned about how white people behave when they are treated, of whatever age or whatever status or whatever intellectual level or whatever educational level, what they learned when they are treated for 2 to 3 hours, the way people of color in this country are treated for a lifetime. And it is distressing, and it is amazing that within 15 minutes, you can reduce the CEO of a major corporation to a blithering idiot because you're telling him he's ignorant because he has the wrong color eyes. It's totally amazing that you can tell a man who has been in the military for 10 years that he's a fool because he has the wrong color eyes, and turn him into someone who says to you, "You came this close to dying today. I could have put you through the wall behind you with one blow. I could have broken every bone in your body because I was trained to do that as a Navy SEAL during the Vietnam War." And yet, he comes back home and I put him through the exercise and I reduced him to what the military never did to him what I did with that exercise. Now think about that. And we use the skin color exercise with children of color on this country all day, every day. And we expect them not to be negatively affected by it. The major fear of white people in this country is that people of color are going to want to do to us what we have done to them. And I'm telling white people the way to solve that problem is treat them differently in the present so they don't have to want to get even with you in the future. Construct your own future, white folks. Change the way you behave toward people who are different from yourself.
Thank you so much,
I don't
Jane.
care how you think about me.
No.
Okay, I don't care how people think about one another. I care about how they treat one another. All right? You're very welcome. Thank you for listening all this time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming here and letting us have you for this amount of time. There's no way I would have ended it without you saying something. You're phenomenal. I know you don't want. I know that's not what you want to hear, but we just appreciate the information that you gave us, guys. You can go find her on Facebook. She's there. I don't think she has a Twitter. I don't think she's bothered with that. But please.
Birds Twitter and tweet. I don't Twitter and I don't tweet. I'm not for the birds. I protect them, but I don't have to be one.
I love it, man.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you one more time, guys. Give a round of applause for Jane Elliott, man. She's Jane. All right.
Yes, she's Jane. Thank you very much for having me.
You got it, lady. Good night.